You definitely don't want to become a crazy cat lady. All of these terms that throughout history have been made to make women who didn't get married and have children seem like they were just useless to society.
Raising children was something that was done communally for 95% of human history.
I feel empowered thinking about like all my ancestors and all of the women before me who would have chosen to live this way and couldn't.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Nikki. I am the baddest bitch in the building. Not to be confused with you, who is also the baddest bitch in the building. And not to be confused with Abigail. She is the baddest free birth control provider in the building. So,
Me.
yeah. Hey. So, Abby, do you want to give a little intro about who you are and what you do? I feel like a lot of the girls are going to know you by now, but
Sure. Hi, I'm Abigail, also known as Zoomy, also known as the girl with the list. I make a lot of TikTok videos about my decision not to have children and my life, my child-free lifestyle, my life with my cats who are sitting right next to me. And I make a lot of female empowerment videos just about living your life the way that you want to and sort of out of this, we call it the standard life script. And this standard life script is kind of that thing of like you go to high school, you go to college, you meet a guy, you get married, you have kids, you get a job, and then you die, right? And I don't want to live that way. I want to live kind of on my own terms. So I'm sort of trying to break that standard life script and do whatever I want to do. So that's who I am.
I am a fellow child-free girly, and
Woo.
I also have 2 cats. So anytime someone's like, "Oh, enjoy your life with your cats," I'm like, I already am. Like, that literally sounds
I
like my dream
will.
life to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that
like
a
I will. Thank
challenge?
you.
Exactly. But for me, at least, okay, I'm 27 and I've known my whole life I don't want to have kids. It just was never I don't have a maternal bone in my body. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
And it took my family a little while to accept that. But now everybody's pretty much on board, and my parents are also fuck them kids. So it took a while, but that's
Yeah.
where we're at. How has it been with you? Because I'm sure it hasn't been easy.
Yeah, honestly, I come from a pretty religious family, and that's one of the huge reasons that I have wanted to be child free is just because I grew up in a religion where motherhood was really, really important. And from the age of 8, you're being told this is how to be a good wife, this is how to be a good homemaker. And then from ages 12 to 16, it's you spend 3 hours every Sunday basically learning how to be a wife. And that was something I just hated it. I really did. I mean, I have very early memories. I always hated going to church. I just didn't I'm just not a very religious person. So my family's still very deep in it, and it was tough for them when I stopped going to church, when I stopped sort of living the way that they wanted me to live. And they are, I would say, still very much holding out hope that I will change my mind at some point. I think they still think I'm pretty young, and I am. But I think that they still think that I will be a different person 5 years from now. Whereas I'm pretty much set in who I am. But I think they still would love it if I were to come back to church, were to have kids, were to get married. And I'm just not sure I'm pretty sure none of that's in the cards for me. So it's tough. It's tough. I definitely have a somewhat strained relationship with my family. But that's okay. We get along as best we can. What are you going to do?
I'm sorry to hear that, but it's also at the same time, your life to live. If people are not going to be on board with that, that's not your problem anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's at least how I've come to terms with it. Whenever somebody has something to give their 2 cents, which I adjust for inflation, and their 2 cents is actually like 0.01 cents. So I'm like, I don't. It doesn't. No one's living your life for you. So
Yeah.
I think it also takes like a very strong-willed and like confident person to be able to go against really like deeply ingrained things like religion, and that like those are really deeply like ingrained ways that you've been socialized, right? So I think that's good for you. It
Thanks.
seems like you're happy, so
Thank
there you
you.
go. So you have put together a list since, what is it, like 2021, 4 years
2021
now?
is when I started doing it. Yeah.
So how many items do you have on your list right now?
I think we're at 312 or 313 right now in the
Oh my
310s.
god.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I feel like you first came up on my For You page in like maybe 2022 or something.
Hmm.
And then every once in a while you'd come up and it would just be like some horror story about like pregnant, like someone's nipple would fall off, or like
Yep.
someone would. I, I have a group chat with my friends from high school. It's called VagButt because, and it's been named VagButt for like 10 years because I don't even know how we got on this topic, but we're talking about how after birth you could tear and then your vagina and your butt become connected and you get a vag
What?
butt. Yeah, so I think my group, like, my phone's on do not disturb right now, but when I go back to it, I'm probably gonna have like 50 notifications from vag butt, and like, I don't know.
I
I
love
feel like
it.
I had to bring that up. I'm sure there's a vag
I
butt
love
on your
that.
list somewhere.
You're traumatized from that, and I understand because that is horrifying.
It just sounds like, oh my god. Um, but like a lot of the items on your list are things that have been like withheld from us, right? Like
Yep.
information that you don't even know about it until someone talks about it and you're like, I didn't even know this could happen, right? What are the like a couple of them that you just can't forget? Like you can't stop thinking about it.
Sure. One of my favorite ones to bring up is if you push too hard and incorrectly when you're pushing a baby out, you can you can actually disconnect your retinas from your eyeballs, and then you go blind. You can go blind from pushing too hard incorrectly during birth. And that's horrifying. Another thing that really stuck out to me was when I talked about IUDs. Um, I mean, not IUDs, epidurals. When I talked about epidurals for the first time, because I didn't really understand what an epidural was. Um, I thought it was a shot. I thought it was like a one time shot and then it's medicine and it's like numbing. I didn't realize that it is they stick a catheter inside your spine, and so it stays there the whole time. It's like a tube that continually feeds you medicine, and some women even get like a button that they can push for more if they like start to feel it, they start to feel pain, and they can like push the button and like get more medicine. And that really freaked me out because I thought it was like a one-time thing, but it like stays in your back the whole time. And so I made a video about that, just saying like I didn't know that this was what it was. And that video to this day is my most viewed video ever because the amount of women who also did not know what the epidural was exactly, and I'm talking women who had given birth didn't know exactly just because like the whole day is so crazy, like they were just like, yeah, give me that epidural, like I don't care, just do it. And so they didn't even really understand like what it was that they had a lot of other stuff to think about, a lot of other stuff going on, so they didn't even know. And then also women like me who have never given birth, never had an epidural, who were like, what? I didn't know that that's what it was. So it was like it was really eye-opening to me that so many women had this done and they still didn't even know what it was exactly. So it's just really interesting to me, like the information and the education surrounding giving birth, motherhood, all of that stuff. It's like not talked about enough, clearly.
The fact that women who gave, like, who went through that don't know about it is
Hmm.
so crazy to me. But it got me to thinking because that TikTok that you're talking about got like over like 20 million views or something, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's like
that's
21 or 22 million views. Yeah.
I feel like that tells us a lot about how much information is withheld, and this is a very basic piece of information.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking, do you think all this withholding of information is just a way to control us and make us make a certain decision?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Knowledge is power, and women have not had power in our society for a very long time, if ever. We have never had the kind of power that the patriarchy gives to men. And part of that is because we weren't, I mean, it's recent that women are even allowed to like go to school. You know what I mean? Men have been going to school for a long time. Women had to earn the right to be able to enter the schools that men were entering. We had to fight for our access to this kind of knowledge. And we still have to this day, fight for our access to information, especially about information, medical information about our bodies. It is not researched like men's health is researched. There's like I can't quote the exact study, but there was something that came out the other day. It was like, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but it was like $50 million has been attributed to researching erectile dysfunction in men, and it's like $2 million has gone to endometriosis research. So these things that like men's health is so much more well researched, and they care about it so much more. And women, we have to fight for our struggles to be heard at all. And so I absolutely do think that it's a control thing, it's a power thing. Men have held the power in our society, and they have held the knowledge, they have held the books, they have been the authors, they have been the researchers, and that's powerful in a society. And so we as women, we need to take that power back, because we deserve to know about our bodies, especially because our bodies do such insane things like grow other bodies. Like, we should be researching that.
I also feel like the people funding the research are also men, or like research councils that are headed by men.
Yeah.
So this pisses me off so much, because every time I've gone to the doctor for an issue related to down there, the response has been birth control. And I know you're wearing a shirt that says take your birth control,
Birth
but
control.
which everyone take your birth control. But I go and like, for me, I have like really painful ovulation, like to the point where like I can't move, I can't sit, I can't move, and it hits me in the butthole. So like
Oh
I
yeah.
cannot sit. And I go to my doctor, and the response was take birth control so you don't ovulate. And I'm like, I don't. That's what's causing this pain? Hello.
Right. Yeah.
So it's such an not even underdeveloped, undeveloped area of knowledge. And I feel like when you withhold this much information, a lot of women are just in the dark their whole lives about what kind of trauma, and I don't even know the word, but like how your life can completely change. And I like to go and look at history, and I'm like, how were things done tens or hundreds of thousands of years ago? So childbearing, like raising children, was something that was done communally for 95% of human history. So for around 290,000 years, women would raise their kids with other women in their communities or their tribes or whatever. So it was never an individual thing. Like
Yeah.
grandmas, aunts, other women who were not actually related by blood to the children would communally raise the child. They would like other women would breastfeed the kid. Like it was never an individual responsibility. And then when agriculture came along around 10,000 years ago, that's when private property and ownership over land became a thing, and men were like, okay, well, I want to own this land and I want to pass it on to my sons. And so that's when the nuclear family came into existence. So that was basically a social construct for men to control land ownership, and then also, as a means of doing that, control women's bodies and reproduction, so that they can ensure that they knew who their sons were, because obviously it's not their problem if they can, like, they stick it into anything that breathes. It's the women's issue. And it all came down to control over
Yeah.
women's bodies, and that's how we live today. And then with things like religion, like you mentioned, and all the like other cultural and social institutions that came around, like those also just like cemented this nuclear family and the individual, I guess, individualization or individualism in raising kids. So what women are doing
Yeah.
now is something that is not, like, it was never intended. and they're doing
Yeah.
everything. They're raising the kid, they're working, they're maintaining their household, they're doing all these jobs that like were never supposed to be done
Yeah.
individually. So long-winded way of saying like this is literally the patriarchy at work
Yeah.
and doing what it does best. So I don't know, was that something that like you knew that ended up on your list or anything that you talked about?
Not specifically, but I mean, it's interesting, and it makes a lot of sense, and I definitely do think that this individual culture that we have, especially like in America, where everything is so profit centered, and everything is so like you can make more money when you sell to people individually. So we've become an extremely individualized community and a society that prioritizes our own, every man for himself type thinking, and that is definitely one of the reasons I don't want kids, is because, I mean, when you have kids today, it's like you are on your own. And that is tough, like we just don't have access to a lot of the village and the community that we use. It's just not something that's prioritized. There is no like lawmakers and community builders, like they're not making space for these places. We don't have third spaces anymore. It's like you're in your house or you're at work or you're at the bar. Like those are the three spaces that we have. We need more spaces for community to build those kind of things, and we just don't have it. And it's tough. It's a tough I hate living in such an individualized society. But in the same way, it's like if I'm going to live in this society, I am going to prioritize myself. Like that is something I have to do to win in this culture. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Have you encountered, I mean, this is probably a stupid question, of course you have, but have you encountered guilt and shame in either in your like decision to be child free or in the content that you've created for other women to be informed about that kind of lifestyle?
Definitely other people trying to get me to, like they're trying to guilt me, to shame me. Personally myself, I'm kind of like, I don't feel any guilt or shame around my choice. But I definitely do get a lot of comments, especially from men. It is mostly the men. It is the old men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even their 70s. I'm like, what are you doing on the internet? Like, go, I don't know what 70-year-olds do, but stop commenting on young women's pages. But they take it extremely personally. It's so strange. They really take my personal, like my own, like I will never meet them. They will never see me. We will never interact. And yet they take my life choices so incredibly seriously and so incredibly offensively. Like they're genuinely offended by the way I live my life, which is so strange. Um, and they definitely are, they try all the tactics to try and get me to feel some type of way, to convince me to live otherwise. It's not going to happen. They have their words carry no weight. But it is interesting the way that they react to it.
I have the same type of people in my comments for my content too. And again, it's these old farts who I'm like, does your sperm even work? Like, I'm sure it's like, but like, what, sir? What shouldn't you be gardening or something? Like, what are you doing?
Right? Like
Wait,
find a hobby. I don't know.
they did. It's commenting on women's
Right.
posts. Yeah,
Unfortunately, they've chosen the wrong hobby.
but it's a hobby that helps us because every time the angry men comment on my posts, it goes viral. So
It's true.
stop, don't garden.
That is true.
Stay in my comments.
Yeah.
But if you were to read the comments on some of my posts and then read the post, you would think that I, like, based on the comments, I said something like, let's kill everybody and kill all men and like shoot them in the head or something. Like, if you were to read the like comment, then
Yeah.
post. And I had a post that went viral lately, maybe like a month ago, where I basically, it was just me promoting my podcast. I just said, patriarchy is not going to be dismantled. So instead of fighting it like overtly, let's be clever and take advantage of it and dismantle it from the inside. And if you want to learn how, tune into my podcast. Like that was literally my post. And people were commenting. They're like, this one guy commented, and I pinned it because it was so crazy. He's like, I hope nobody, no police, firefighter, ambulance ever comes to rescue you if you need help. And I'm like,
Whoa.
I commented,
Okay.
my response was, I guess I'll just call Ghostbusters. Like, but
That
they're
is so
so
bizarre.
butthurt. I think it's just like when they see young, like I think especially like people our age, younger women who are not going to fall for this crap, like where I'm not
Yeah,
going to let other people dictate the way to live my life, and they see us taking control over our lives, and they know that the shenanigans that have gotten them this far in life aren't going to work with us. It pisses them
yeah,
off, and the only thing that they can do is call us names or hope that the ambulance doesn't show up or whatever. So I'm like, I'm doing something right. This is
yeah.
my sign that I'm doing something right. So I love when I get comments like that. It doesn't bother me at all. I talk a lot about guilt as an emotion that we need to remove from our minds. Like if I don't feel guilty about something in the moment, like if I blurted something out and I snapped at someone and I feel guilty like right away, I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. Fine. But if I don't feel guilty about it and then someone tries to make me feel guilty about it, that means what I've said or felt has been filtered through their worldview, their misery, all the norms and cultural like values that are meant to control us. And someone is trying to make me feel guilty for something that I didn't feel guilty about when I thought of it. So I'm not going to feel guilty about that at all. So what can you say to like women who are being guilt tripped and are being shamed for their choices to be child free?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. I think personally the way that I look at it is we are the first women ever to be able to choose that. I mean, it's like our entire history that has been a woman's role in society has been some sort of maternal, even if they didn't have kids, they would, probably be raising kids in some capacity, taking care of them. Um, and if they didn't have kids, they were, you got the whole spinster thing, and like crazy cat lady used as like, like a bad thing that you definitely don't want to become a crazy cat lady. And all of these terms that throughout history um, have been made to make women who didn't get married and have children seem like they were just useless to society. But when you think about like going back to spinsters, like when you think about spinsters, there was a reason they didn't have husbands and children. And it's because they were financially independent. They had jobs. And so they had the ability to choose whether or not they wanted a husband and children. And guess what? They didn't. They didn't want it. That's why they didn't have it, because they didn't have to have it. So I think when people try to get to shame us into feeling bad about and feeling like we're useless in society and blah blah blah, I think we should realize we are the first women who have had this choice. We can make this choice for ourselves more easily than the women before us could do. A lot of the women before us, like there were probably hundreds of millions of women who got married, had children, even though they didn't want to, but because that was like really the only way to find stability and and safety. Really, I mean, you had to have a husband or you didn't have any money. You had to have a husband or you could not have a credit card. All of those things. Like you were literally safer if you had a husband. But we don't live like that anymore. Women can have jobs. We can go to school. We can make our own money. We can have a bank account. We can do all of these things that we were not able to do 100, 200, 300 years ago. So when people try to get us to feel guilty about the way that we have chosen to live, I just think about all of the women before us who would have chosen to live this way and couldn't, literally couldn't, even if they wanted to. They literally couldn't, because they had nothing in society that would help them if they decided not to have a husband and kids. So don't feel guilty. I feel empowered thinking about like all my ancestors and all of the women before me who would have chosen to live this way and couldn't. That's who I'm living for.
I really like that. That's a perspective that I actually didn't think about before. Like you're basically living your ancestors' dream. Like
Yeah.
That's
I think a lot
literally
of
what it is.
I think of my grandma specifically, my great grandma. I never met her, but when you look at pictures of us, we're identical. We are weirdly identical. And I think about her a lot because um she wanted to be she wanted to be a pageant queen. She had like big dreams of being famous and being a Hollywood star. And but she wasn't able to do any of that. And so she got married and she had children, and she kind of spent a lot of her life. She maybe wasn't even the greatest mom to my grandpa, because he talks a lot about how she like didn't she just kind of wanted to be her own. She wasn't maybe a great mother. She wanted to prioritize herself, and she sort of put that on him a little bit. So she maybe wasn't the greatest, but she definitely didn't want to have kids. And when I look at her and I think about like what motivates me and what I know of her, like I am her reincarnated, and I am living the life that she would have chosen to live.
I love that. This reminds me of my great grandma, who I also never met. But I just know that she got divorced in the 1930s in Iran.
Wow.
So she's pretty iconic, but I don't know
Wow, love
anything else
that.
about that story. Yeah, but even like someone like my grandma on my mom's side, um, she got married, I don't remember, like as a teenager, like maybe 17 years old, I think, and had 4 kids. But I think deep down, she never wanted to have kids because she's so supportive of me not wanting to have kids and is always telling me, like, you're making such a good choice, you're so smart, blah, blah, blah. And so I feel like so many women want to be child free. And I see that the most with women I encountered today because I still the people who gaslight me the most. I don't share my wanting to be child free anymore. Like I just don't really talk about it with people because I don't care about their I don't want to be subjected to their judgment, and I don't care
Yeah.
about what they have to say. So if someone's like, "Oh, when you grow up and have kids," I'm like, yeah, okay." So I don't argue, but the times that I did say something, it's always been from women who are relatively young, like I would say like maybe late 30s or 40s, who are always like, "Oh, when you get older, you're going to change your mind." I feel like there's a lot of projection at the end of the day from
Yeah.
women who just felt like they didn't have a choice, even, oh my God, choking on my words, even today. And one of the worst, this is like tangents I'm going on now, but
Go for
this is going to be a
it.
tangent. I just feel like I need to share this because in my previous life, I worked a corporate job, and the workplace I worked in was like pretty evenly split between men and women. And it was a consulting job. So I worked on a lot of different projects. I worked with a lot of different project managers. And my favorite manager I worked with, I am still in contact with this woman because she's amazing, was a child-free woman in her late 40s who was married. And that's one of the first ways she introduced herself to me was like, she's like, "I'm 40, blah, 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 and I don't have kids." And I'm like, "I like you. We're going to get along." The She was amazing. I love this woman. I wish her the best. The woman, the manager who I worked with, who was, I would honestly say, and I'm not saying this as an exaggeration, like one of the worst people I've ever met in my entire life, is a woman in like, she's not even 40, like she's pretty young, has 2 kids and is married. And from the moment I saw her photo on the website when I was going through the hiring process, I'm like, I don't like this person. This seems like a mean girl. And she ended up being one of the reasons that I quit, aside from like pursuing my podcast. She was such a toxic person and like literally verbally abused me in front of other people multiple times that I'm like, I almost felt bad for her. And I think that that stereotype of those like little bit older women who prey on like the younger girls in a workplace is so true. And I think it's really rooted in women who felt like they didn't have a choice over their, like, how to live their youth and their lives, because a
Yeah.
lot of those women are married with children and quote unquote living that life that we're all supposed to live, but they're
Yeah.
miserable at their core. And it makes me, I don't hate that woman because I feel bad for her. At her
Yeah.
core, it's just somebody who didn't have a choice over how she wanted to live her life. So
Yeah.
anyway, sorry, long-winded way of saying women who feel like they don't have a choice end up being one of the fiercest gaslighters of women like us who are
Yeah.
exercising that choice.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. I think the projection can be really, really strong. And I think it really is just that sort of that feeling that they get when they see a life that they could have had if they had chosen differently, or maybe put more thought into their choice. Because I think a lot of people, I think so many people, they follow the standard life script just because like that is what people do. They don't really think about it. It's like, go to high school, go to college, meet somebody, get married, have kids, work a job, retire, die. Like that is the standard life script. And it's sort of like in your 20s, and when you're young, you can feel so lost. And so I feel like that's something that people turn to when they feel lost. They're like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like I'm about to turn 26. And I'm like in my 20s. I'm like, okay, like this is life out of college. Like, what do I do with my time? What kind of hobbies do I want to pursue? What kind of education do I want to pursue? Because I've always been a learner. So I like, I'm always want to be learning. But now that I'm not in college, it's like I have to like sort of do that for myself. I have to pick out books. I have to go to the library. I have to decide what I want to learn. So there's like a lot of feeling lost, feeling like, what do I do with my life now that I'm in my 20s? And I think a lot of people reach that point and they go, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to get married. Okay, let's do that. Or if they are married, they go, oh, I know what we're supposed to do next. Let's have a baby. That's what people do. People do that. Let's have a baby. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily put the thought into it that they should, because I think a lot of people just kind of do it because they feel like they have to, or because they feel like they're going to do it anyway. It's almost like they don't have a choice in this situation because that's just what people do. And so I think when people live their life that way, and of course a lot of times they will be happy and they will live wonderful lives. But I think a lot of women, they might look at a younger woman who is thinking about these things consciously and thinking, do I want kids? Do I want to get married? Do I want to follow this standard life script? Do I want to do what people are telling me I should do? Or do I want to do something different? When we look at women who are thinking about those choices, when you're an older woman and you didn't think about those choices, I think that can bring up a lot of emotion. That can bring up a lot of some regret, some jealousy, and those are powerful negative emotions for sure.
No, they definitely are. And it's just sad. Like at the end of the day, even when they project those emotions and it comes off as, you know, bitterness, or like the case of that manager treating me like crap, like to me, these are like cries for help, because it's just sad
Yeah,
that people have been, or women, I should say, have been brainwashed. Because like these life scripts that you talk about, it's brainwashing. It's just a way to have us believe that we have to do a certain thing, because that will
yeah,
make us easy to control, and it makes us predictable, because you know that
yeah,
at around a certain age she's going to do this, and then she's going to like get married, and then a few years later she's going to have kids. And so it just makes you so easy to control. And motherhood and womanhood are not synonymous for a lot of
exactly.
people. It That's another form of brainwashing. If that's what it means for you because that's what you want, then
Right.
by all means, you made that choice.
Yeah.
But I actually looked into a lot of matriarchal animal species, because just like
Yeah.
you, like I'm always learning. Like I finished my degrees, I did my undergrad, I did my master's, then I tried to do a PhD, got rejected from all the ones that I applied to. So that like the podcast that I'm doing is like my way of continually learning, because
Yeah.
everything that I do is like I have like 1,000 books out when I'm like writing an episode, and it's like it's so much fun. So it's like a way of learning for me, and I'm learning a lot about human nature and society and history, and how a lot of people, or like civilizations or cultures, have or used to operate. And when I looked at matriarchal animal species like lions and elephants,
Mm-hmm.
they have that same communal childbearing responsibility. So
Yeah.
the females in the pride of lions or the herd of elephants, they communally raise the kids. And that's what enables those women to not be, I guess, socially isolated or excluded
Yeah.
from the rest of their herd or their pride. And applying that to humans, like raising a human child, I would assume is more difficult than raising a lion, for example, because like the
Right.
lion's not on like Snapchat sending nudes to a boy who's gonna leak them, or like the elephant is not skipping school to smoke weed, right? So it's like it's a lot
Right.
more difficult raising a human,
Right.
but you're doing it alone, and
Yeah.
you're you're excluded from society, right? Like in a way, a lot of
Yeah.
women, and I went to TikTok, the most reliable search engine in my opinion, and I watched like a lot. Actually, this is the search engine that brought you to me, so you
Yeah,
know.
so true. So there we go. We love TikTok.
Exactly. TikTok and Reddit, my two search engines.
Hmm.
But I was watching these TikToks of women who were talking about their experiences, their postpartum experiences specifically, and a lot of them were like, I felt resentment towards my husband because he didn't have to go through all this pain
Yeah.
and all these like hormonal, physical changes. And a lot of women were talking about how their lives just completely changed after having a kid. And
Yeah.
then in the comments, more women were there like reaffirming that and then sharing their own experiences. So it just like I think we're asking women to do like an impossible thing, and they're still doing it,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
100%.
So
100%.
that's like, I don't know, that's crazy to me. What are like some of the things that you've seen in the comment section of your posts that just made you, I don't know, maybe they were heartbreaking, maybe they were eye-opening for you? Like what are some of those comments?
Yeah, I definitely get those. I definitely get a lot of women saying how they feel like they lost their sense of self, because they sort of, I mean, motherhood takes up, especially those first few years, especially as a woman, even if you have a supportive partner, even if you have an incredible family who's helping you out, those first few years of motherhood, you are spending all of your time taking care of this baby. Every single waking second, they need something from you. They need you to be breastfeeding them. They need you to change their diaper. They need you to put them down for a nap. It's like literally all of your time is consumed with taking care of this tiny little human. And so a lot of women talk about how those years were so difficult because they feel like they completely lost their sense of like personhood. And you think about like there's something about how babies, they don't even like recognize, they can't even recognize fully that their mother and them are two separate entities. Like it takes them a couple of years to even recognize in their own brains that their mother is a separate person from them. And honestly, I feel like something similar happens in the brain of the mother, where because you've had this baby in your belly, in your body for so long, it takes a long time to even like separate yourself and realize that you are a person separate from the baby. And you just don't even have the time for that. So they lose their hobbies, they lose their friends, they have strained relationships with their partners, with their families. A lot of women talk about how those first few years of motherhood, they completely lost everything that made them them, and they didn't even know who they were as a person. And I'm watching my own mother sort of go through something like that. She's in her 50s now. My youngest brother just got his license, so he can drive and he can take himself to school and his all of his extracurriculars. Um, and she's been talking to me a lot about how she's like, what do I what do I do now? What, because she's been a stay-at-home mother for almost 30 years. She has been fully, and she was a wonderful mother, but she was definitely one of those mothers that was like, she was cooking all of the home cooked meals. She was getting up early, making us breakfast, taking us to school, and then probably going home and then bringing my backpack back because I didn't bring it to school. I was that kid. I was always leaving things at home. Um, and so she just was, she was a mother for 30 years. That was like her entire identity, and she loved it. She was one of those women where motherhood was her calling. She loves being a mother. But now that she's not really doing that anymore because my littlest brother is growing up, she's like, what do I do with my time? I don't know what I like to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this extra time I now suddenly have on my hands. Like she does not know. And so I think it's really interesting, like just that loss of personhood is so challenging for women. And that's something I see a lot in my comments.
That's really sad because you have this like role that you play. It's like a job that you have for whatever
Yeah.
30 years, for example, and then all of a sudden you're like, what do I do? This reminds me of the song What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish. And
Hmm.
it like, oh my God, that song makes me cry every time I listen to it. But I feel like that really embodies somebody's situation, like your mother's, like so deeply. And
Yeah.
something I was thinking about, because like I said earlier, like my parents are very much on the same wavelength as me because they went through the child raising. Like me and my brother, our age gap is a lot smaller. We're just 3 years apart. He's 3 years younger than me. Um, so like they're, the trajectory is kind of similar. Um, but they a lot of time look at little kids now and they're like, or like parents with little kids, and they're like, how did we do that? I like, that is my biggest nightmare.
Yeah.
I never want to do that again. And that got me thinking because I'm like, okay, on one hand, that is temporary. Like you only suffer through those early years of like having a very demanding human that is dependent on you for, 5, 6, 7 years. But then I'm
Hmm.
like, that you're young. Like they're young, but you're young too. Like if you have a kid at 35, then like from like 35 to like 42, you're losing yourself to,
Yeah.
care for them. And then you've lost a chunk of your 30s and also your 40s. So
Yeah.
even though this mindset of like it's temporary, it'll pass, they'll grow up is there, that age that you're at is also temporary. Like I don't want to lose my youth. I, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
a recent thought that I had, but I felt like I needed to share it and get it
Yeah,
off my
especially
chest.
women who have children really, really young. Like if you have kids, like my mom was having kids by the time she was 19. Those are incredibly developmental years. Like from 19 to 25, like you are discovering who you are as a person. And if all of that time is consumed with taking care of little babies who need you every second, how are you supposed to discover who you are as a person besides who you are as a mother?
And you are a baby at that age.
Yeah. Yeah, babies taking care of babies. That's one of my big reasons for not having kids. I'm like, am I ever going to not feel like a little baby? I still feel like a tiny little teenager baby. I'm like, I have not beat teen pregnancy yet. I don't feel like, you know?
To me, anyone who has a child under 35 is a teen mom, and that I
Totally,
stand by
right?
that.
Yeah, totally
Yeah.
agree.
One of my biggest fears is being pregnant. Like I'm not even kidding. Like I'm not exaggerating. Like that is one of my biggest fears. It just
Yeah.
scares me so much.
Yeah. It's really tough on your body, and like the pressure to bounce back is crazy, especially considering what a woman's body goes through during pregnancy. I mean, you can rip, you can tear, your boobs grow, then shrink. And it's just like, I mean, we gotta, it's crazy because your body really, it's not going to bounce back in that way. I mean, some women like lose their ability to pee correctly and they're just peeing I mean, it's like a common joke. Moms are always talking about how they sneeze, they pee, they cough, they pee. I'm like, yeah, because they have no bladder control anymore just because of what pregnancy, how hard pregnancy is on your body.
It's really scary. And for somebody like me, where like I place a lot of emphasis on my body, like I
Hmm.
compete in a sport. I compete in a sport called powerlifting, which is basically like lifting weights. And I like my body image is so important to me and it's such a big part of my identity that I feel
Yeah.
like if my body were to change, like if I gain a little bit of weight, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I am never going to be back in my weight class, da da da. But like if my
Yeah.
body were to change like that, like in the way of a pregnancy and then postpartum, I honestly think like I would have a mental health crisis. Like I'm not even kidding. Like that is
Yeah.
so terrifying to me.
I mean, it's just like as women, we grow up in a society that is like we are told to think about our bodies at every second. You know what I mean? And so it's like this weird dichotomy of, you know, your body is the most important thing. Stay thin, stay sexy, stay young, stay looking like a little girl. And then also like pregnancy, also get pregnant and become a mother and have all of these changes happen in your body, but then immediately bounce back. And it's like, how are we literally cannot do both. We cannot be young and skinny and all of, all these things that are like pretty much mostly like pedophilic idealizations of men, and then become pregnant. And like after that, it's like your body changes. And it's just like our bodies are so central in our development as women. And then like the whole pregnancy thing, it's something I think about a lot.
It's just I don't know, because it's mixed with like body image
Yeah,
issues and the way we're supposed to look, which again is something that's
yeah,
dictated by men. Like I feel like we can't get like two steps without talking about something that men did in this
yeah,
conversation. Just it's
yeah.
fucking annoying, but
It's like you're supposed
it
to be 120 pounds and stick thin, but you're also supposed to be pregnant. You're supposed to be tiny, but you're also supposed to be pumping out babies. It's like it can't be both. You can't have both. So, what are women supposed to do?
literally damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's just
Yeah.
like there's literally no winning. So I've decided to opt out of that altogether. I'm like, you know
Yep.
what? This is how I look.
Absolutely. No, thank you.
That's it. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. But it's something that popped in my head just now, is how rappers like rap about impregnating women. This is totally
Oh
unrelated
yeah.
to everything we've said. Like, I feel like impregnating someone is an act of violence. And I feel like that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about like w- being a mother as a form of being like as a form of control,
Mhm.
because it could be, and I'm not saying this in a way to diminish anything, but it could be very debilitating, right?
Mhm.
Like there are women who
Yeah.
are bedridden during their pregnancy. I know my friend's mom was bedridden almost the entire 9 months while she was pregnant with my friend, or women who have like a very tough like postpartum period. And it's
Mhm.
not just that. And then like what you were talking about, like the years afterwards where you lose your sense of self, or maybe 30 years afterwards. So it's like it could be very debilitating, and that's a way to control women, because those like matriarchal animal species where the woman can lead even throughout the childbearing years, that just
Yeah.
shows how much these life scripts, like you were saying, are meant to control us. And maybe I sound like a wackadoodle talking about control and all these invisible things and brainwashing, but like
It's
I believe
true.
like that's what it is. It is true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Men talk about impregnating women in such an interesting way in pop culture. And it really is a control thing. I mean, I think about it like, men can impregnate 30 people in a day, whereas women can only get pregnant once, once every 9 months, once a year. Um, and so when a man impregnates a woman, especially especially a woman who lost my train of thought because of the loud
A
cars out
man who
there.
was speeding, yeah.
Yeah, a man made me lose my train of thought. Imagine that. Um, when a man impregnates a woman and has no intention of like committing to her and like being a provider, being a husband, like being there for her, being a support system for her, which is how a lot of men treat women. They just want a baby mama and they don't have any intention of being a baby daddy. Um, it's like if you impregnate a woman and you have no intention of like being there for the child, you are essentially doing that woman to a fate of having to take care of something that is half yours. And it's like if you're the man in this situation, you're making this woman basically devote 100% of her time to you, basically. I mean, it's your kid too. But when you're not helping, because it often falls on the woman. Let's be real here. It often falls on the woman to be the caretaker of the child. Most of the time, we have single mothers, um, and when you have a single mother who is not being supported by her baby daddy, she is taking care of something that is half his, but she's spending all of her time and he is spending none of his time. He's free. He's off doing whatever, probably impregnating other women. And he's not helping her out at all. He's basically living the lifestyle of a child-free person, whereas she is devoting all of her time taking care of something that is his. Insane.
That's so fucking true. And this reminds me of a comment, like a type of comment I get in a lot of my posts from men, our 50 to 70-year-old friends, who a lot of the time they say like, oh, you're living in a world made for women because we have to pay child support, or divorce laws benefit women. I'm like, are you complaining about supporting your kid, or like
Literally.
divorcing your wife and then giving her money so she can raise your offspring? Like, is that a matriarchy to you? Like,
Crazy. I mean, there's a reason the laws were written that day, is because that way 90% of the time it's like The women are the ones taking care of the children, driving them to school, driving them to whatever extracurriculars they've chosen, driving them to their first jobs, driving them to prom. It's like, and that's just the driving. It's like they're also feeding them and clothing them and just taking care of every single one of their needs. And the men just don't think about that at all. It's like they really don't even think about it ever.
A lot of the time, men say they want kids in the same way that like a little kid says they want a puppy
Yeah,
because the parents are going to take care of
100%.
it,
They don't
right?
think about it because they don't have the same sacrifices tied to it. Because women, it's like, if you want to have a baby, it's like, okay, be ready for your body to change, be ready for your life to change, be ready for everything that you know to change. Whereas men, there are so many men who have lots of children who are out there living the lifestyle, the child-free lifestyle.
Nick Cannon, are you listening to this? No, that's so true. And it's so crazy to me because a lot of the time, when I discuss women as creators, like creating life, there's always some smart ass man who's like, oh, well, we had to plant the seed. I'm like, okay, yeah, we're not saying you had no role, but you can plant your seed and do your little squirt and leave and not
15
even
minutes.
know. 50, you're being generous. I would say 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're
Like,
right. You're right. 15 minutes is extremely generous. Their contribution is less than 1%.
literally,
Yeah.
maybe the 15 minutes is like all the people they've impregnated throughout their entire lives, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
Combined.
but it's like, sir, you can literally do your little 30 seconds and then leave and not even know that you have a child.
Yep.
So miss me with that, oh, we create too. Like, literally, shut up. Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
This actually reminds me of a post that you made when, I think it was in November, during like when Roe v. Wade was overturned. I live in Canada, so it's, I just get this news, but I don't have to experience it,
Yeah.
fortunately. But
Yeah.
your post made me real, like, it was just so heartbreaking because you're encouraging women to get IUDs and to stock up on abortion pills, not just for themselves in case they ever need it, but for other women. And that just
Yeah.
that gave me goosebumps. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it was just so sad to me.
Yeah. Well, we live in an administration that you never know what they're going to take away, because it just feels so chaotic and unhinged. And it's definitely an administration that does not, I mean, when the election cycle was happening, JD Vance, the vice president now, he was saying all of these things about how, oh, this country is run by a bunch of child-free cat ladies who have no stake in humanity. Basically just accusing women without children of like not caring about what society and what happens to it. It's like, I don't have to have kids to care about climate change, whatever. I could talk for a million years about that. But this administration really, really prioritizes women who have children, and they want women to be having children. They're very concerned about the birth rate falling. And I think abortion and lack of birth control. I mean, those are the ways that they had that's why women had so many kids 100, 200 years ago, is because we didn't have access to these things. We need birth control in order to not have babies. So it does scare me a little bit, just knowing that they prioritize women who have kids. And if you don't want them, I think it's really important. I got my IUD switched out, even though it had a couple years left on it. I got myself one that was going to outlast this administration, just in case they decide to do anything to our access to birth. In fact, they already have, in states like Texas and states like Georgia, where abortion laws are really, really strict. It's like, I live in California, so I'm pretty safe, but you never know. You never know.
That is insane that you just said you had to get an IUD that outlasts this administration.
Yeah.
Like, that is
Yeah.
crazy. I have goosebumps now. I'm not even kidding. But that's like, it makes me really sad that this is a reality for a lot of women, and a lot of women are less fortunate than this and are in situations where their entire life is going to change and there's nothing they can do about it. So
Yeah.
I I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know how I can help anybody in this situation, but I think just spreading this knowledge and letting women know that there is a choice out there and
Yeah.
not to succumb to guilt and shame is, at least I hope, a way to help a lot of women who, you know, take back control over their lives and over their choices. So
Yeah.
you're doing you're doing God's work.
Thank you.
So this brings me to my last question, and I think it's a very on topic question, which is, give us your patriarchy hack.
Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about this because I was like, I wanted I just thought a lot about it, but at the end of the day, I come back to I think not having kids is such a patriarchy hack because the patriarchy really needs women. I mean, it needs women to have kids to continue. I mean, if all women stopped having kids today, like society would not continue, you know? So, um, and because being a mother, it subjects you to things like you have to hand control of your life over, and so being a child-free woman really kind of makes you immune to a lot of the things that keep women down. And you have so much time to educate yourself, and you have so much free time to do whatever. You can have a career, you can get educated, you can spend your time learning and growing. And it's not to say that mothers can't do that, but I certainly have more time than a new mother would. So I think not having kids is kind of the ultimate patriarchy hack, because the patriarchy centers around women who have kids. Like you have to have kids in order to partake in the patriarchy. So I can kind of distance myself from it because I'm just not subjected to a lot of the things that the patriarchy wants to subject women to.
I love that. I had a feeling that was going to be your hack, and I'm so glad it was, because it truly is the ultimate hack. And I mean, look, we have the embodiment of the patriarchy happening right now with the US
Mm-hmm.
administration. So now, like, as is just so timely, more than ever, is so timely.
Yeah.
So love that. And all that's left for me to ask you is, what are some upcoming fun things that you want to plug with the girlies?
Yeah, so I'm wearing a shirt right now. I have been trying to release merch for years. It's really tricky though, and I wanted to do. I didn't want to just like go through some of these like mass produced. Like, I care a lot about my merch, and I want it to be something that I want to wear, and I want it to be high quality and all of that stuff. So I partnered with a small business, and we are making these shirts together. I mean, she's making them, so she's doing all of the manual labor. They're not quite out yet. This is literally a sample that I got in the mail yesterday, but I love it. I'm very excited to release it. It says "Take Your Birth Control," and so that is going to come out soon. Maybe by the time this episode drops, we might have it. I'm not entirely sure, just because I'm not sure if we're going to do like a pre-order type thing. We still have a lot of kinks to work out because it's just me and her. We're just doing this together. Um, so keep, if you like the shirt, if you're this is my catchphrase, take your birth control. If you want a reminder to take your birth control, this will be up. You can find it probably in the link in my bio. I'll have a link to the website where you can pre-order, or you can order depending on how we do things. So yeah, I'm really excited to release merch for the first time.
That is so exciting, and I love your shirt. Everybody take your birth control if you haven't. And honestly, Abigail, this has been great. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you for
us.
having me. This is so fun.